Welcome to the Pardon My Art podcast with me, your host, Oscar Castro. This show is all about the artist. Our podcast features creatives doing amazing things in the art world and across a wide range of artistic mediums to help inspire other artists to reach their full creative potential. Today's guest is Misty Sol. Misty and I met over social media a couple of years ago when we were introduced by a mutual friend and fellow art aficionado. An interdisciplinary artist, Misty uses the gifts she's developed as a painter, a performance artist, and a farmer, among her many other talents. Misty Sol creates art that explores Black people's connections to nature, wellness, and speculation. Her paintings, children's book illustrations, stories, and eco-practice are heavily influenced by Black history and aesthetics. Misty's work inherits a sense of narrative, sensuality, magic, timelessness, hope, the bucolic and fecund, stimulated by the history of her family through tales told to her by her grandmother, who was a migrant farm worker, a midwife, and a gifted storyteller in early 20th century America. Since 2018, Misty has been the creative director of Tiny Farm Wagon. Misty's paintings made international debut on the CBS sitcom Grand Crowe in 2021. In 2022, her paintings were seen on the set of the Oprah Network's All Rise Season 3, now streaming. Misty Sol has a BA in Literature from Penn State University and an MFA in Interdisciplinary Art from Goddard College. Let's jump into the conversation. So, hi, Misty, and welcome to the Pardon My Art podcast. How are you today?
Hi, Oscar. Thank you for having me. I'm good. How are you?
I can't complain. Yeah, there's so much in the world happening right now that I feel fortunate. I have a lot of gratitude, so I'm good.
I hear that.
Yeah, so we had one conversation once, and we'll get into that. I want to unpack how you helped me in that conversation. But tell us a little bit more about who you are. I know that you are a painter and a performance artist, I believe. Tell us about how you frame yourself as an artist.
Yes. I like the term interdisciplinary artist because it takes some of the pressure off of medium and it puts it more on theme and curiosity, exploration, mission. You know what I mean? Because to me, it's more about what I'm trying to do with the art, what I'm trying to say, what kind of story I'm trying to tell, or what kind of emotion I'm trying to get, or exploring a new form even, and that'll dictate how it comes out. So I'm a painter. I think there's a difference too between what I'm talented in and where I'm working, right? Because I don't think I have to have talent in a place to in a space to work in that space. I just have to have interest, because I think talent and skill as an artist can be two different things. Right. So a lot of my so I feel like my talents are I'm a singer, and that's natural to me. You know what I mean? I'm a storyteller. That's natural to me. I'm a painter. Somehow that's natural to me. I don't know how, but it's my dad was a painter, so it's something I just have, right? So those are things that are in my toolbox, but I will go and get other things. At this point I'm a sculptor, or I'll dabble in that, and I'm also a farmer. But these are tools that I can use in my art practice, depending on what's needed. You know what I'm saying?
So you mentioned your father being a painter and that sort of being a natural, maybe a pivot point. Where else did you find influence? All these things come naturally to you, and I think that's awesome. Where did you find, beyond maybe being raised by a creative person or creative people, where else did you find inspiration as a child? How did you grow into this?
Okay. First, I wasn't raised by my dad. He, for most of my childhood, he wasn't around. But I knew of him as a painter. So I had this legend, you know what I mean? And I had seen his paintings. And so that really affected me. Part of my theory about my people and how we engage with art and some people will be like, oh, we don't all dance, we don't all do this or that. But like there's a certain cultural incubator. I think when you come from a Black community like I did, that there are certain like cultural tools that we use to communicate with each other. We just do, you know. And I think I know that it's very different than mainstream commercial, like Western art, where there's a product and it's not necessarily functional. I ran into that issue like in school with art, where things they'd be like, this is too dogmatic or too functional. It's not art. Um, but yeah, that's where a lot of mine comes from. Like the Black church, like those types of ritual performances. Black girl games like on the playground, like a sense of rhythm. Like I like to think like that's Black girls like hip hop foundation, you know what I mean? Like those, like all that, that we used to do. Double Dutch, even like, later years, like things like hip hop and graffiti, like all of that influenced me. And then something as I think ubiquitous is Bob Ross. You know what I'm saying? When I was a kid, like I remember that would come on like after cartoons or like before, and I would get up and paint with him. But it still had to do with my dad because my dad wasn't there, right? But I knew he was a painter, and I knew that, I liked art. And so, like, I was very conscious of wanting to connect with him in that way, you know? And then my mom, bless her, sweet angel, when her, 8-year-old was like, hey, I need Prussian blue and vermilion. She didn't play with me. She went and got me oil paints, trusting I wasn't going to eat it, trusting I was going to watch this man and I was going to do my thing. And so, like, she took me to, like, this huge, like, art store that we had in our town. I think it was, like, called the Craft Barn or something. It was huge. And, like, they just had all the colors. And, Bob Ross would tell you exactly what to get to do these paintings. And I had my own themes and stuff, but yeah, that was a really big influence on me. And I was going through a lot at home at that time. Like, my mom and my stepdad were always at it. I'm just like, we didn't have no money. Like, it was just really, really rough. And, I would sit and I would just paint. And I remember one time my mom was like, what is making you paint that, baby girl? Like I was painting this storm, like with like these boats, like on the ocean. It was all dramatic. And like, I can remember these things. I'm like, I was really using that not only to have the pieces of my family that I didn't have, like to connect to this greatness I imagined in my father, and also to process all these stormy feelings I was having around my environment, not being able to control it, because you're a child and all these things that are going on around me. Like that was really a way for me to stay creative and like stay whole and well, like as a child.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's deep. I was checking out your website, and of course, I've been following your art as you've been sharing it on social media for as long as we've been social media friends. I find a really strong female energy, a women energy, a Black woman energy, particularly the African American cultural tradition seems to pop out in your work, and you use color in a way that like I'm a huge fan.
Oh.
How did you get to like the position point where you're like, this is going to be my thematic approach to painting and designing compositions with the kind of color and cultural connection?
That's a fun one, because I everything I do is kind of like about family and like Black history and diaspora and all these connections and wellness. And I think like some people, it's like, what is your art? Some people might be like, oh, my art is nature and landscapes. I feel like if I could have one thing that described my art, it'd be like a Black photo album. So a lot of my compositions, the ones that aren't from imagination, are from my photo albums or from like my clients' photo albums. Like I love to reproduce like family pictures and things like that. And I take like these black and white images and infuse them like with the color, like the stories, like the literal like coloring in these stories, these spaces that we that are kind of blank for us, especially Africans born, in America, descendants of that, you know, that whole foolishness. But slave trade, like we have these like huge gaps in memory. And that's crazy because we're supposed to have like the longest memory on the planet, and it's tens of thousands of years that they just, snatch from us. But I feel like it's there, but it's there in these abstract patterns and, these rhythms and these colors, so I feel like, yeah, the compositions, a lot of those come from my family, very strong matriarchy, my mother, my grandmother, my aunts, and I do have some in there, my uncles and stuff, but yeah, like that strong like family cultural basis, and then using that color to fill in, you know.
Yeah, and again, as a fan, you don't just do this for the sake of doing it. Like you have collectors, and when we talked, you were helping me figure out how to price my work, and because as a person who was trying to get out there and develop a crew of collectors or team of people that might be interested in my work and want to commission me for future work or be interested in the work that I'm doing, how to price myself accordingly. And honestly, that first commission after that conversation was was awesome. It just felt so good. So, how did you get from like doing this as a young person because it was an outlet for you to making this something that is bringing in income for you?
Um, I think it's like a just it's part of my inability to conform. Um, and I think some of it's like trauma based. Like I can't like I don't function well in 9 to 5s. I've never had one for more than a year, like some place where I have to clock in and then stay there till you tell me to go home. Like I can't, you know what I mean? And so, because I would have made more money by now that way, actually, you know what I'm saying? I just can't do it. And yeah, I just a few things happened to me like at the end of college. Like I thought I wanted to be a lawyer, like that was my path. And a few things happened to me that just wouldn't allow me to play that game anymore, you know. And I just became really absolute about my
Mm,
values, like
mm,
around how I want to spend my time, how I want to spend my life. And especially after my mother passed, like my mother passed like right as I was having children. I was like, there's no way. You know, like I want to be a full time mom. That's what I want to do. You know, if we're talking about, one life, or at least the one I'm working on right now and prioritizing, I was like, that's what I'm going to do. And I don't care if it doesn't pay anything. And a lot of times it
mm,
didn't pay anything, but we had this artful life. So it allowed my children to not feel poor, even though we were really poor. Like we would we would go out to like Fairmont Park, like to the Japanese house, and just go downtown and things, to the museums, and I'd be like, this is your yard, this is your city, these are your steps, enjoy it. And like till about age 7 or 8 they believed me, you know what I mean, not in a literal sense, but they, had that sense of entitlement to beauty in the world. And so having art like while I was raising them allowed us to have like this
mm.
magical like culture filled, like really rich existence with very little cash, you know. um and so I have an 18-year-old now, so we played that game for a long time. But also I realize like I'm not a capitalist by nature. Like I'm not
Mhm.
like transactional by nature, but at the same time, I understand that there's like resources flowing all over this universe, right? Resources that have been taken from my ancestors. Like my grandmother didn't get none of this. Like she was, she worked on a plantation well into like the 20th century when that shit should have been done, My mom was born like in that situation, like dirt floor cabin plantation. Like, yeah, y'all can give me some of that for my ideas, for my labor, for my vision. Yeah. Like I don't. Art is about creating meaning, right? And that's the ultimate for people who have been oppressed. Because, like, modern history, the whole of modern history is just them telling us what the world is, remaking it, right? And art to me is saying no. I was here first, actually, so you're not gonna tell me what it is, and you're gonna pay me for this vision. So
Right on. Yeah. Uh, I was also noticing your work was debuting on the sitcom All Rise, and so like you're making a name for yourself. Obviously, with balancing children not being in the 9 to 5 world and creating art so that people can relate to you and your message through your art, like you must have a system or something. How do you keep your flow? Like, what's the process for you to both stay motivated, I guess, or inspired? I know there are a lot of people who talk about what inspiration really is, and it's just really just about sitting in front of the canvas or sitting in front of the book and writing and just writing or doing the thing. But what's your approach? How do you get it done?
so we got systems and we got motivation. You want to know about? Okay.
Right.
Systems is hard. I'm still working on systems as far as like sales and things like that. Um, I've leaned really because I'm just now getting to that. You know what I mean? In my career, like the
Hmm.
because so much of what I've done and most of my career has been not for profit. You know what I mean? And just
Hmm.
in a conscious space. And so part of what helped me with that is that I formalized that part of my practice into a nonprofit structure because I love the nonprofit world. I do. As much as we
Hmm.
complain about slow
Hmm.
payments and stuff like that, somebody said nonprofits are the market for love. I was like, I love that because yeah, it's a space where you can say, look, this is what I'm doing. It's not going to make your bottom line any better. It's not, for sale 10,000 units. You can't get it manufactured in China. This is an authentic experience that I want to give to my folks. And this is something that we want to create, and there are people with money whose hobby it is to support those kinds of things. And it gives like the average person or even businesses the opportunity to write it off if they want to donate to you. Um, yeah, I just think it's a good space for artists, you know.
Yeah. How difficult was that for you to set up a nonprofit? And I'm not, I mean ideologically, but like just like the function of like doing it in that way, which is as an individual artist. How did you do that and make it so that it stuck for your path?
Well, I'm still in the process of making it stick, but it's working. It's working. Yeah, we've connected with thousands of people with some really good organizations in the city. Um, Yeah. Well, one of the secrets to make it a little bit easier is I have a fiscal sponsor. Shout out to Culture Works. And but yeah, it's hard. It's definitely hard. Yeah, like the balance is hard because I have the not for profit work and I have my own personal creative practice, because you got to produce stuff if you want to sell stuff, right? And then I have you know, contract work, stuff that pays the bills. And yeah, and then the business part of it, like administration, it can be a lot.
Yeah. You sound like you might be a team of one, or maybe you have your children working with you.
No, definitely not a team of one. I don't have anybody else officially on staff with me yet, but oh, I'm definitely not a team of one. Like, so many different like partners and advisors and folks, and culture works is like a whole army,
Yeah.
like for real. So yeah, I'm definitely not doing it by myself.
So how does the Culture Works thing work? I'm familiar with them. I used to have one of the organizations I worked for, nonprofits I worked for, had a space there, and I would come in a couple times a month to just use the space. We weren't regular. I don't know what they would call it, like renters or whatever the term is, but I never got around to learning how they actually support either the tenants, if you will, the people who are renting the space in there, as well as artists who are coming through and connecting, including those who get fiscal sponsorship. Is there a programmatic thing that folks like who are in the Philadelphia area, I gather, since this conversation might be heard by people all around the world, I hope, but something similar might exist in their city or state. So what is it that makes Culture Works the thing that is helping you get to where you want to go?
Yeah, so there's different ways to do it. As an individual artist, I think it depends on how big your vision is and what you want to do, whether because as an individual artist, you could actually approach any nonprofit with an idea and ask them to receive funds for you and to partner with you in that way. You know what I mean? So that's like
Mhm.
a shorter I guess like a more direct path. And like that also allows you to take donations. It allows you to get like I don't know, like if you need supplies for your event, you can now approach people for donations of like food for events or equipment, whatever supplies you need. Culture Works. So under their umbrella, I have that kind of support. I have support with fundraising and strategic planning. I have support like with a total like back end office that does the financials for you, like the taxes and all that stuff. You know, you also have just someone like a second pair of eyes that are looking at funding opportunities for you. You have other organizations that are also under their umbrella that you can cross collaborate with. It's just a really I don't know. It just takes a lot of the back work out of it. Like I don't think I could do this. I know I couldn't do this without them. Not and do all the other things I'm doing.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And aspirationally, where are you really trying to go with your nonprofit uh, matrix and your creative work as it relates to both that and outside of that?
Well, everything that I do is kind of about that acknowledging and just celebrating our humanity because there's been I feel like the world tries to be our mouthpiece and tell my culture story. And so I feel like I'm creating wellness in the community by preserving these stories, by uplifting these voices and acknowledging these cultural arts that we have, these treasures, and how they bring wellness to our community. And so, in that sense, I want Tiny Farm Wagon to be a platform for that, to just to continue to engage with the community with questions of what keeps us from wellness and what brings it to us. And through that process, I want to be a platform for other artists, an equitable platform. So I really want to be able to commission big works of art, public art, whether that be like visual art, performances. We have a festival that we do yearly, and it's growing. So I would like to continue that. I'm not interested in it being huge, but I'm interested in being impactful, and I'm interested in being able to pay artists well to do what they do well. I find that Black
Mm-hmm.
artists don't get paid as much as we should, and I think that's across the board with like industries. So yeah, I would like to do that. Um, I would definitely like some farm space at some point. We have a small garden now. We're gonna have to move soon, because the churchyard that's hosting us is going to have to move. But I would love to have our own art farm where we could have these programs.
Hmm. Back to the farm thing, like, where's the connection for that? I know me as a creative person, you can see some of my art behind me. Our listeners can't see that, but you can see some of the stuff I do, and maybe you've seen some of the stuff I do that I've posted online. And as a creative, I feel like the earth is a thing that has always called me as much as anything I have ever done creatively as a child. That I've evolved into doing as an adult and continue to do. Is like, what's your connection to the earth in relationship to your art? How does that speak? Where's the intersection for you?
Um, it's like part of my studio practice, I guess you could say. So I come from a long line of farmers. My grandmother was a farmer. My mother was born my mother and father are actually born on the same plantation farm. Um,
Oh.
yeah, and it was something. My grandmother felt like coming into this modern era, she didn't want my mom to have to live that kind of life. Um, but I feel like there were some things that we gave up going from, the more earth-based lifestyle to what we do now. I know health-wise, my mom's generation, we, we just didn't do as well with some things. And so just talking about
Mm.
preserving family and history and culture, I felt like my healing and my creative journey was pointing me to retrace my grandmother's footsteps. And so she was a farmer, she was a midwife, herbalist, she was a storyteller. So yeah, I just felt like that was my legacy and part of our journey as people, because I feel like part of the dehumanizing us is kind of separating us from the land. Um, Toni Morrison said that there's something really special about when Black folks can relate to nature on a deep level, because we've been so attacked because of our connections to nature. You know, it was another reason to call us backwards or compare us to animals, or this and that, or call us dirty and this and that. But yeah, a lot of us come from very earth-based practices, whether we're talking about harvesting herbs and foods for medicine, whether we're talking about actual farming, or whether you're even just talking about, my mother's house plants. Alice Walker talks about, that famous essay of hers, In Search of Our Mother's
Mm.
Gardens, that for a lot of our ancestors, they didn't have the space to discover painting or sculpture or one of these more leisurely arts that I'm so blessed to be able to indulge in. So they had to find ways to express their creativity in what they were doing in their kitchens, and the way they healed their families and the way they prayed. And I want to make sure that even though now I have the
Mm.
opportunity to explore these arts that are sometimes not as functional, that they keep that depth, and they keep that ritual and that connective aspect. So they keep their functionality in some ways, right?
Hmm.
Yeah, so that's the farm aspect.
Yeah. And in terms of like, the goal to have more than a garden and to have a farm space, when do you see that happening for you in relationship to your process? You might be right at the very beginning stage of this. Like, do you have a 5-year plan, a 10-year plan?
I am. It's kind of a 5-year plan. Honestly, I feel like that's a real
Yeah.
estate game. And that's I feel like that's part of our
Hmm.
reparations.
Hmm.
Yeah, environmental racism is all tied up in our situation. I feel like environmental racism is the heart of it. Like, that land, that land they
Hmm.
want, those resources.
Do you have your eye on land
Mhm.
around here, or down south, or abroad? I have some friends who are Jamaican and went back to Jamaica and created. And you may know them, but they created this incredible eco justice farm where they are doing amazing kinds of creative things, with their farm. Innovative stuff, I would say, things that are off the normative way of using fungicides and all kinds of herbicides, more natural, and even creating like a compound that is both earthquake and hurricane proof. So I was like, oh wow, if I ever get it to have the ability to have a farm, I'd like it to be like Jamaica or my island of Puerto Rico, where I can do that kind of expansive building. Like, is that what you envision? Like, really creating a center where people can come and do more than just farming, perhaps, but like get involved in the building of community. It sounds like that's where you're headed.
I will say that right now, it's a few years out. I don't think 5 to 10 years is too far to mention. But I will say that in this space that I'm in right now, there's still space to dream. And that is very possible. I do have some connections outside the country. I traveled a lot when I was younger. Not so much in recent years, even though I got a chance to go to Jamaica this past fall. But yeah, that sounds wonderful. It that definitely seems like it's in my future. Right now, my children are at college age, and so I'm just kind of seeing what they're gonna do. Like
Hmm.
I'm also a homeschooling mom, so that when we talked about being broke for a little while as an artist,
Hmm.
uh,
Hmm.
you know, I was doing that thing, and I have a senior in high school still, so I've kind of just been focused on getting them situated, and that's just to say that I don't know that I'm going to make big moves before they graduate if they both attend college locally, and um, that's just some of the boring stuff of mom life. It's not like the glamorous
Right.
artist answer that you want to hear, but you know, mom stuff. Yeah, and I know some people would say, uh, lots of people work while they have kids, and they do this and they do that, and you know, I'm not I'm not limiting anyone else. I just had and have my priorities, and I wanted to do things a certain way, and I still want to do things a certain way. So yeah, when they're finished with their education, I feel like we can decide if we're going to do that international thing more seriously. I mean, I dragged them around a lot when they were younger too. Like, I decided when they got to high school to be a little more stable, but we spent like years in like artist residencies and like living in the mountains and like, traveling across the country. So,
I think the other challenge is, and this is where kind of leading, like I'm inspired by your intrepid nature to just do the thing. And remembering at my young age, being a young person, as young as your children now, college age, and thinking, okay, what am I going to do? I went to college. After college, what am I going to do? And I started out as an art major, but I didn't graduate with an art degree because I felt, well, aside from the fact that I didn't really like the curriculum that I was in and felt I could continue to maintain my art practice without having to go through formal training or finish with a formal degree. And I chose kind of, political science. I
mm,
also had this fear, I guess, of just stepping out and being a full-time artist. And it was back to that, I grew up poor. I got a more reasonable degree than an art degree, one that can get me a job, right? So I can pay back my loans and move out and do all the adulting
yes.
things, and not go for a residency abroad or anywhere for that matter. And I find that a lot of us, and probably more than just people of color, but I know, coming from a poor, marginalized, economically marginalized background, that for me, it was not easy to just say, I am going to go this path the way I see a lot of my white college peers, graduates, hey, I'm going to take 2 years off, travel the world, and experience life before I actually go get that job that I'm probably not going to like. I said, no, I can't do that. I can't afford to do that. I have to get the job now. So you're inspiring in that sense that you've been able to do the thing and do it with children, right? And not have that be the thing, not let that fear of falling get in the way of you doing the thing that you know you needed to do. And so I just want to lift that up as like an inspiring thing. It seems to me like a very unicorn thing in our communities for somebody to just do the thing that you need to do for you versus what others expect of you per se.
Yeah, and I think it's the stigma of poverty too, because so you grow up poor, and it's like you're given this directive. You need to go out into the world. You need to get out of this hood. You need to do whatever it is. You need to go and make more of yourself than we were able to provide for you. And so instead of living your life and exploring and, uncovering your riches, you're in a race to prove that you don't have to be poor, you know,
Mm-hmm.
or, just in fear, like you can't just figure things out. It's like, no, I have to start right now or else I'm going to, I don't know, like what it is we think is going to happen if we give ourselves some time to, but I understand, our parents, um, they came from a generation where they felt like they wanted us to have some certainty.
Mm-hmm.
But I feel like because I took a chance, my children don't really have that fear because they understand that you can professionalize yourself, um, you know,
Mm-hmm.
as an artist just as well as you can as a carpenter. But I think some of that involves them not understanding what it took for me to get to this point so that they could stand on my shoulders. Just like I don't understand, like what my mom went through when she was young. And my grandmother was born in 1900. I know my mom doesn't understand what So
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I feel like as long as we're elevating, I feel like my mom's proud of me. And that's another thing too is the trauma of losing my mom, like right before I had children, right as I was becoming like a real adult. Um, it kind of gave me this, well, who's going to tell me not to do it attitude, you know?
Mm.
Whereas
Yeah.
if she would have been alive, maybe I would have let her talk me out of some of the crazy stuff I wanted to do. But, I almost went through like a second childhood. It's crazy. Like yeah, when she passed, I went through this big rebellion and I was like, I'm just not going to do it.
Well, I honor that. Yeah. And speaking of honoring, like again, back to maybe your paintings, as I've been looking at just your style and the way you create. Are you fashioning yourself after other predecessors? Like, who do you find inspirationally is most evocative of the kind of work you're pursuing and creating? Do you have any top two, top one, or are you really just like a self-inspired individual pulling from all of the ways that you've learned to develop your craft?
Yeah. I mean, I think as an artist, you always look at other people's stuff and be like, oh, I wish I painted like that. Or, ooh, that looks easier than what I do. Or, ooh, that looks nice, But I don't, like, I can't say, like, I'm a Van Gogh person or I'm a Basquiat person. I just kind of do it,
Mm-hmm.
And it is really a meditation for me. It's one of the few spaces where just like for hours, like, it's just flowing through me and not necessarily me efforting, you know.
Yeah.
And yeah, I love it. It's such a spiritual experience, and especially when I'm doing family members or I'm doing other people's family members that they've introduced me to. Like it really is a conversation. It's
Nice. Nice. Do you paint every day?
absolutely not.
Why? Why not?
Why? Because I cook every day. and I clean every day and I teach every day and I pay my bills every day.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, the a business person I really like said sometimes you can't be the workhorse because you got to be the show pony.
Mm-hmm.
And like the art part is really the show pony part for me. So that's really important. But then like I don't have a machine behind me. So I have to do the back end work and make space for myself to paint, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I don't always have time
Yeah.
to do it as much as I want to. That's why when someone commissions me for a painting, like when I say I'm grateful, like I'm grateful because you know, you are providing space for me to interact with my craft. You know, otherwise I got to go back in my email list. You know what I mean? And drum up payroll for next month. But yeah, I just appreciate, you know, when someone's like, you know, here's a deposit, you know, you can work. Or when an organization is like, yeah, you can have this residency. What do you want to make? You know?
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, I don't paint every day, but I, I think about it every day.
Mm.
And I live creatively every day.
That's inspiring too, because I don't paint every day or do all of the other kinds of creative things that I'd like to be doing every day. But for the same reasons, you know, and I don't know that I would have put
Yeah.
it in that context of the show horse um, and the
The
workhorse. Yeah.
workhorse and the
Yeah. I
show
get
pony.
that. I get that.
Yeah. But, you know, and the other thing too is even if I could paint every day, I wouldn't paint
Mm-hmm.
every day, not physically, because I think there's a filling up period and there's an outpouring
Mm-hmm.
period. So um, part of it is using my eyes, you know, going out and looking at flowers, looking at other paintings, looking at my children, looking in their eyes, you know what I mean? Talking to my friends, like those types of things. Like, you know, I feel like if I painted every day instead of
Mm-hmm.
living, and using my eyes, my paintings would be flat, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Like I have to have, you know, this life, this spiritual energy that I hope is in my paintings. Like that's where it comes from. It doesn't come from the painting skill, you know, it comes from, you know, that spiritual well that I'm building up daily.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's deep. If you were in front of a room of artists, which you may be from time to time as an educator, what would be your like penultimate piece of wisdom that if you could only give them one thing to remember as young artists that they would, or artists of any age, and I say young because as I think of like people that might be your kids' age or younger, but now I'm thinking about people of all ages. You know, those who are thinking about a creative path later in life and are technically maybe young in the context of their experience of doing the art or maybe turning it into a business or whatever it may be that's new for them. What's
Um,
what's your words of inspiration that you can release to them?
just do the thing. Hmm. As, as much as you can, like try, explore, create, um, find the joy in it, release your pain through it, heal through it, connect, with other people through it. I feel like it really is like a blessing. It's a way to like give thanks and just like live in gratitude to be creative. You know, it's prayer and it's partying, it's rhythm,
Mm-hmm.
it's dancing, it's just life. And yeah, like as much as you want to breathe every day, like live creatively and just be in that joy. Like don't let people put you into the anxiety of it, like it has to be a competition or something like that. Like you're not a competition, you're just life energy. So be that, and that's art.
Dope, dope. And where can people, aside from your website, where could they find your work? Well, including your website, where can they find your work?
The Colored Girls Museum, love them. They have a few paintings. Bartram Gardens. There's a cob oven there. That's a sculpture that me and my partner built. And so that'll be on display in the spring and just like kind of permanently. There's a few murals that I'm working on in Chester. I have a mural at a store called Holistic John at 29th and Girard of Dr. Sadie. That's really nice. And I have a few murals in children's schools and television now.
And television now, yeah.
Yes. Season 1 of Grand Crew. And I think that's on Hulu. And season 3 of All Rise, and that's streaming on Amazon.
Awesome. Well, we'll have to have you back to talk about how you got your art on TV shows. I'm sure there are people out there who want to know more about that, me included.
Child, you just gotta keep putting yourself out there. You have to, just don't put anything too far in front of yourself. Like anything's possible. You know, these are all people and relationships. So.
Nice. And do you have like a Patreon, or is there a way folks can support you or reach out to you in a way that is similar to Patreon? I just dusted off my Patreon because I was like, oh, right, I have this thing that people can send me money to make art. Let me remember how to use this. And so I'm just starting to get back into it. But I know some people really love it and have enough followers to be able to support whatever they do creatively. Is there a way that people can connect with you as well?
I don't have a Patreon yet, but if you want to hit me up at Misty Sol at mistysol.com, I could talk to you about how you could donate to Tiny Farm Wagon. That's tax deductible. And if you just want to donate to my private practice, that's possible. So I can give you a PayPal or a Cash App link until we get that Patreon going.
Sweet.
Definitely looking for patrons. Love those.
Right. Yeah, I'm on a mission too. Well, thank you for this time. I've learned a lot. I've learned a lot more about you, and I am going to figure out how to buy some of your art before it gets too expensive and you get all super famous now that you're on TV.
Yes, I'm selling prints this season, and nice. I'm having a 50% off sale.
Oh, that's good to know too. And it's Christmas time. So, but clearly, like, I want to be able to tell people that you exist and that there are ways to get your art. So prints, books, other things that they can do to commission you for works. I am going to do my best to drive you, the audience that will be finding me. So yeah, thank you for your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Keep doing this. This is great. Great questions. Have a good night.
You too. Take care.
Peace.
Thanks for listening to this episode of the Pardon My Art podcast. I hope that you learned something or were inspired by something that our guest had to say. Our goal is to build one of the largest networks of artists with the simple motto of each one, teach one. If you like what you hear, please subscribe to my Patreon page at patreon.com/Oscar. And Oscar is spelled with a K. Well, that's all for now. Stay tuned for more interesting conversations with artists who are ready to share their amazing stories and inspire you to create your own. Be good to yourself and do great things.